Have you ever paid attention to this? No matter how carefully you articulate your thoughts, some people will still dismiss what you say. Many believe that earning respect is about being the loudest in the room. But the real truth is this: strength doesn't lie in how much you raise your voice. It lies in the power of well-measured silence. Imagine this. You step into a boardroom, find yourself in a tense family exchange, or simply chatting with friends. You speak a single sentence, and everything stops. Not because you shouted, but because what you said held undeniable gravity. In this message, I'll reveal 5 carefully crafted lines that produce that exact effect. Think of each one like a sharpened edge, small, focused, impossible to overlook, especially the third. So unexpected and firm, it can instantly reset the power balance. Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, "Stop wasting your time debating what a virtuous person should be. Just become one." True respect can't be demanded. It's earned by demonstrating calm, clarity, and unwavering self-possession. Let's begin. Phrase 1. I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree. At first glance, this phrase might seem like nothing more than a polite, almost ordinary response. But hidden within those words is a subtle assertion of authority, an unshakable posture that radiates composure. Most clashes between people don't disintegrate because of lack of facts. They fall apart because of ego. Pride is fragile. It doesn't need truth to collapse. It only needs to feel dismissed, ignored, or attacked. And the moment you tell someone outright, "You're wrong," or "You don't know what you're talking about," their pride builds a wall. Their defenses rise instantly, like a fortress under siege. They stop listening to the logic of your words and start preparing their counterattack. They are no longer hearing you. They are only fighting you. This phrase, however, works differently. It carries a balance that most people never master. Beginning with the words, "I hear what you're saying," immediately shifts the energy. It signals that you're present, that you've paid attention, that you've taken their thoughts seriously enough to acknowledge them. It shows respect for their perspective, even if you disagree with it entirely. And here's the brilliance. Acknowledgement softens resistance. You disarm pride before it has the chance to raise its shield. Then, once you've laid that foundation, you calmly deliver the second part. But I don't agree. No raised voice, no mocking smile, no personal jab, just stillness, just certainty. The strength of a person who refuses to be baited. The steadiness of someone who does not need volume to carry weight. Now imagine this vividly. You're seated in a boardroom. A plan is being outlined, one you know is fundamentally flawed. Around the table, most people would either keep their objections buried, choosing silence to stay safe, or they'd speak up in a way that sparks conflict and draws unnecessary heat. But you lean forward, you meet their eyes. Your voice is steady, not sharp, and you say clearly, "I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree." Instantly, the room changes. The attention shifts, not because you raised your voice, but because you stood your ground with composure. You're not seen as an adversary, not as a rebel looking for a fight, but as someone thoughtful, independent, and not easily swayed. Someone who has listened and then drawn a firm boundary. That is how true influence is built. This is Stoicism made real. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about separating it from judgment. It's the wisdom to stand in disagreement without hostility. The mastery to keep your heart steady while your mind stays sharp. The discipline to speak your truth without dishonoring yourself or the person in front of you. And here's the secret many never realize. The calmer your refusal, the sharper its edge. Anyone can blurt out, "You're wrong." That requires no strength, no discipline. But to hold your ground with grace, to declare your stance without turning the air toxic, that is mastery. And mastery always commands attention. People can sense it. Deep down, we all recognize it. The individual who controls their voice controls the atmosphere, and the one who governs their mind ends up commanding respect without ever asking for it. That is why this phrase carries such silent power. So remember this tool. Carry it with you into every difficult discussion, whether in the workplace, in your home, or even with strangers. When the urge rises either to lash out or to stay silent, call on it. Speak it calmly. Speak it with presence. I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree. It may appear simple, but simple doesn't mean weak. In fact, its simplicity is its strength. And when used with calm certainty, it becomes unstoppable. Phrase 2. That doesn't sit right with me. Sometimes, the most powerful reply you can give is also the briefest. You don't need a lecture. You don't need to raise your tone. Just 6 words, "That doesn't sit right with me," are enough to stop a wave of disrespect before it even begins. 6 words, yet they hold the weight of an unshakable boundary. And the beauty lies in their simplicity. You're not battling. You're not over-explaining. You're just drawing a line that cannot be mistaken. Think about how people usually react when someone crosses a line. Many smile awkwardly, hoping to dissolve the tension. Some stay silent, telling themselves it's not worth the trouble. And others go along with the disrespect, pretending to laugh or nod because they fear standing out. But whether they realize it or not, all 3 reactions deliver the same hidden message. It's fine to treat me this way. It's fine to diminish me. Silence becomes permission. Nervous laughter becomes consent. But when you choose differently, when you keep your posture steady, hold your composure, meet someone's eyes, and calmly say, "That doesn't sit right with me," the entire atmosphere shifts. You don't need to shout. You don't need to justify yourself. You don't need to fight. The line is drawn, clear as stone, and everyone in the room feels it. Picture this vividly. You're at a dinner with colleagues or acquaintances. The conversation is flowing, the mood is light. Suddenly, someone drops a cutting remark or a crude joke, expecting you to join in. They're waiting for your smile, your laugh, your approval. But you don't give them what they want. Instead, you pause, you breathe. Your voice is calm, measured, firm. "That doesn't sit right with me." And in an instant, the energy changes. The laughter dies. The smirks fade. Attention shifts, not to the person who made the joke, but to you. Because in that moment, it becomes clear. You're not the kind of person who trades dignity for applause. Seneca once wrote, "He who honors himself will be honored by others." This phrase embodies that truth. It says, "I will not laugh at what is wrong. I will not participate in something that diminishes myself or others. I will not lower my standards just to be accepted." True respect begins with self-respect, and when you show it outwardly, the world adjusts accordingly. And here's something even deeper. When you stand your ground like this, you're not just protecting yourself, you're quietly empowering others. In every gathering, there are people who feel the sting of disrespect, but stay silent out of fear. They watch, they feel the same discomfort, but they lack the courage to speak. When you speak, you give them a model, you give them permission, you show them it's possible to draw the line without aggression, to defend dignity without losing calm. That is why the Stoics believed self-respect was an invisible shield. It doesn't require anger to enforce. It doesn't need noise to be effective. It radiates outward, changing the way people engage with you without a single raised voice. It creates a presence that cannot be ignored. So take this phrase with you. Carry it into every interaction where someone tries to test your boundaries. Don't fight fire with fire. Don't shrink into silence. Stand tall, steady, unshaken. Look them in the eye and say, "That doesn't sit right with me." 6 words. Just 6. But together they form an armor that no mockery or disrespect can pierce. They silence without aggression. They establish respect without a demand. And they transform you into someone the world cannot easily push aside. Phrase 3. Let's continue this when mutual respect is possible. Some moments no longer qualify as conversations. What began as an exchange of ideas slowly turns into a clash of egos. Voices rise like crashing waves. People interrupt each other before thoughts are finished. Every sentence becomes less about clarity and more about landing a blow. It's no longer dialogue, it's combat. And in that chaos, most people stumble into one of 2 predictable traps. They either match the noise, raising their volume to fight fire with fire, or they fold into silence, withdrawing in defeat. In both cases, they lose either their composure or their dignity. But the Stoic way reveals a third path, a way most never consider. Instead of shouting to be heard or shrinking to disappear, you remain still. You pause, you breathe, you choose your moment, and then, with composure that feels unshakable, you deliver a line that cuts through the noise without ever needing to rise above it. Let's continue this when mutual respect is possible. With those words, you accomplish something rare. You extinguish the fire not by feeding it, but by refusing to let it consume you. You have changed the entire game, rewritten the rules of engagement, and taken yourself out of the battlefield. Suddenly, control shifts, not because you overpowered anyone, but because you refused to play by the old rules. Now, imagine this vividly. A colleague interrupts you halfway through your point. Their tone is sharp, their body language aggressive. They're trying to dominate the space, to push their will into the room. Most people would react instinctively, either fighting to be louder or swallowing their frustration in silence. But you do neither. You stay grounded, your voice calm, your eyes steady. You say, "Let's continue this when mutual respect is possible." And then it happens. Silence. The air changes. The room takes note. Because your message is undeniable. You're not running from the discussion. You're not afraid of conflict. You're simply setting the price of admission, respect. Without it, there is no conversation worth having. Epictetus taught that you cannot dictate the behavior of others, but you always command your response. This phrase is that principle alive and breathing. It shields your peace, it preserves your dignity, and with not a hint of anger, it forces the other person to reflect on their own behavior. Here's what most people overlook. Calm insistence on respect has far more force than shouting ever could. The very first time you use this phrase, you'll notice the shift. Tension begins to dissolve. The energy cools, and without raising your voice even a fraction, your words suddenly weigh more than all the noise around you. This is not weakness. Do not mistake calmness for surrender. It is precision. True strength doesn't clamor for dominance. It doesn't need to. It commands attention through presence, through steadiness, through quiet control. So make this phrase part of your arsenal. The next time arguments spiral, when tempers flare, when the space feels more like a battleground than a dialogue, be the one who changes the dynamic. Don't match aggression. Don't retreat into silence. Instead, step into calm authority. Look them in the eye and say, "Let's continue this when mutual respect is possible." You're not walking away in fear. You're walking away in mastery. And in that choice, you prove what real authority looks like. The kind of authority no one can strip away, because it doesn't come from force. It comes from self-control. Phrase 4. I'd rather end this discussion here. Not every disagreement is worthy of your time. Not every clash deserves your voice. Some conversations stop being about truth the moment they begin. They're not about clarity, they're about conquest. They don't seek understanding, they seek domination. And when that happens, you can feel it in your chest. The weight of words that no longer carry purpose, only pressure. These exchanges don't lift you, they drain you. They're not dialogues, they're traps. And this is where most people stumble. They get hooked. They argue longer. They raise their voice higher. They pour energy into defending themselves point by point, as if victory could come from exhaustion. But all they've really done is waste time proving something that never needed proving. The opponent doesn't want resolution. They want reaction. They want you caught in the endless loop, and most fall right into it. But you don't play that game. You take another route. You pause. You breathe. You recognize the moment for what it is, a snare designed to strip away your calm, and you step aside. With quiet certainty, with no anger in your tone and no apology in your posture, you say, I'd rather end this discussion here. Those words close the door with finality, and they don't close it out of fear, nor out of weakness. They close it because you've chosen strength. Real strength doesn't measure itself in hours spent shouting. Real strength isn't about how long you can endure abuse or nonsense. It's measured in your ability to decide that your peace is worth more than any illusion of winning. Picture this scene clearly. Someone keeps pressing you. They repeat the same tired lines. They circle back to the same shallow points. They refuse to hear you. You feel the bait dangling in front of you, daring you to fight. But you don't take it. Instead, you steady your breath. You lower your voice, shoulders relaxed, gaze steady, and you say, I'd rather end this discussion here. And in that moment, the air changes. The tension breaks because you made a choice, one that too few people ever make. You didn't win the argument by force. You won by refusing to hand over your energy. You didn't step back in weakness. You stepped back in sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your adversary." That's exactly what this phrase allows you to live. You refuse to mirror their rage. You refuse to spiral into their chaos. You decline to become what you despise. Instead, you preserve dignity by stepping away, not backing down. And here's a truth worth burning into memory. Walking away doesn't mean defeat. It doesn't mean surrender. It means clarity. It means you've seen the battle for what it is, pointless, and chosen not to waste yourself on it. It means you've placed higher value on your time, your energy, your state of mind, than on the hollow satisfaction of winning a meaningless exchange. This phrase isn't just words. It's a wall, a boundary carved with calm authority. It declares, I will not be pulled into chaos. I will not let you dictate the terms of my peace. I have the power to disengage, and I will use it. So keep this phrase with you. Carry it into the next storm of arguments, the next trap of endless words. And when the loop begins, when chaos invites you in, speak it with quiet finality. I'd rather end this discussion here. Because sometimes the most powerful statement you'll ever make is the one that ends the conversation. Sometimes closing the chapter is the highest form of control. Phrase 5. I respect your view, but I see things differently. In the modern world, voices surround you from every direction. Everyone has an opinion on how you should work, on how you should live, on who you should love, on the path you should follow. And too often, these opinions aren't shared as suggestions, but imposed as commands. They arrive heavy, insistent, as if your life belonged to them and your choices existed only to satisfy their expectations. When confronted with this pressure, most people fall into one of two predictable responses. The first is to argue endlessly. They dissect every claim, point by point, pouring energy into proving themselves right. The second is to nod quietly, to smile, to agree outwardly while suffocating inwardly. They choose peace on the surface at the cost of betraying themselves. But both paths drain you. One drains your energy, the other drains your authenticity. But there is a third way, the Stoic way. Instead of battling or bending, you stand firm in balance. You listen fully, you give space for the other person's words. You honor their right to speak. And then, with calm clarity that cannot be shaken, you answer, "I respect your view, but I see things differently." This line carries quiet power. It's confident without crossing into combat. It's polite, but never submissive. It communicates a truth that is rare. I recognize your freedom to believe what you choose, but I will not abandon my own freedom in the process. Your words deserve acknowledgement, but my thoughts deserve preservation. Picture it clearly. A co-worker insists that their way of approaching a problem is the only valid option. The tone sharpens. They push harder. Instead of being pulled into an exhausting debate, you breathe. You steady yourself. You say evenly, "I respect your view, but I see things differently." The atmosphere changes. Pressure evaporates because you've taken away their control. You didn't fight. You didn't yield. You stood your ground in stillness. Or imagine a family member pressing their beliefs on you, religion, politics, lifestyle, urging you to follow their path. Many would snap back or surrender just to keep the peace. But you, rooted in calm strength, respond with the same phrase. No attack, no surrender, just balance. There is profound equilibrium in those words. They shut the door on manipulation while leaving the bridge of mutual respect standing. They say, "I will not be bent, but I will not break respect in return." Seneca once warned that to live under the rule of others' opinions is the cruelest form of prison. And this phrase is the key to unlock that cell. It frees you from the endless tug-of-war of people-pleasing. It dissolves the quiet resentment that builds when you nod along but disagree silently. It affirms that respect is not submission and that to disagree is not to be hostile. Here's the deeper truth. Not everyone will applaud you for this. Some may push back harder. Some may dislike your independence. But whether they agree or not, they will feel the weight of your calm resolve. They will sense the courage it takes to resist politely without apology. And that kind of courage earns respect in a way that no shouted speech ever could. Real authority doesn't come from silencing others. It comes from carrying your own beliefs with composure, even if you're the only one standing in them. So when the world tries to press you into conformity, don't lose hours in arguments. Don't give up your authenticity in exchange for surface-level peace. Stand firm, meet their gaze, and say it clearly. "I respect your view, but I see things differently." Those words are dignity, they are balance, they are unshakable strength in motion. Have you noticed the thread that runs through all of them? Each of these 5 phrases, though simple on the surface, carries a structure of discipline underneath. They are not witty comebacks. They are not clever tricks meant to outsmart someone in a debate. They are something much deeper. They are about clarity. They are about composure. They are about the kind of inner strength that doesn't need to announce itself, because it radiates quietly from the way you speak and the way you hold yourself. Let's break down what makes them so powerful. First, they create separation between emotion and reaction. Most people live in a constant cycle of stimulus and response. Someone provokes them, they lash out. Someone insults them, they strike back. They feel heat, and that heat drives their voice. But these phrases break that chain. They force a pause. They allow reason to guide the words instead of anger. They show that you are not a puppet pulled by emotion. You are a master of yourself. And people notice when someone has that kind of control. Second, they establish unmistakable boundaries, not in the form of shouting, threats, or ultimatums, but in the form of calm declarations. Each phrase says, "Here I stand. Here is my line. This is what I will accept, and this is what I won't." And boundaries spoken with composure carry more weight than those shouted in rage. Because you're not trying to convince anyone, you're simply making reality clear. And when you model this kind of self-respect, you silently teach others how to engage with you. Third, they project dignity outward. The truth is simple. The world often mirrors what you carry within. If you carry yourself with hesitation, people treat you tentatively. If you carry yourself with insecurity, people test your limits. But when you carry yourself with calm confidence, with quiet respect for yourself, the world adjusts. Others begin to mirror that respect back to you, not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated it. This is why these phrases are not merely techniques, they are practices. They're not about managing conflict alone. They're about embodying a philosophy in the middle of daily life. They represent the essence of Stoicism, the pursuit of mastery, not over others, but over yourself. To respond with discipline when provoked, to stay anchored when pulled, to remain sovereign when pressured. And here lies the paradox of respect. The more you chase it, the more it runs from you. The louder you demand it, the less you receive. But when you let go of the need to force it, when you live it through your actions, your words, your presence, respect finds its way to you naturally. Not as a concession, but as recognition. So don't think of these phrases as tricks or shields to be pulled out occasionally. Think of them as armor you wear every day. They are not decorations for conflict. They are tools of alignment. Reminders that you can live in a way where peace and power are not opposites, but companions. Because in the end, every time you use them, you're not trying to win an argument. You're winning something far greater. You're winning integrity. You're proving to yourself and to anyone watching that calmness and strength can walk hand in hand. That the person who governs themselves is the one others instinctively follow. Practical lessons, bringing these phrases into everyday life. 1. In the workplace. Think of endless meetings, clashing ideas, or fast-paced discussions where silence often feels like safety. Most people either shrink back to avoid conflict or speak impulsively to defend their point. But you're different. When you replace silence with measured conviction, the energy shifts. Instead of being seen as passive, you're viewed as reliable. You speak less often, but when you do, people listen. Why? Because calm and clarity earn authority. A single, well-placed, "I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree," can carry more weight than 10 reactive arguments. 2. In relationships, love doesn't survive on affection alone. It depends on healthy boundaries. It's not disagreement that tears people apart. It's the erosion of respect. These phrases offer a way to disagree while honoring the relationship. Let's revisit this when we can speak respectfully. That's not rejection. That's protection. Protection of the relationship and of yourself. They send a message. I value what we have, but I will not lose myself in the process. That balance is what preserves both intimacy and integrity. 3. On social media. The digital battlefield of opinions is endless. You could spend hours trapped in back-and-forth replies, your energy leaking out with each typed word. Or you could respond with a simple truth. I respect your view, but I see things differently. You're not avoiding the conversation. You're ending it on your terms. You leave the interaction lighter, stronger, untangled from the noise. No bitterness, no burnouts, just peace. 4. With strangers. From rude comments in public to pushy salespeople or strangers testing your patience, most expect one of two things. Either you'll lash out or fold. But when you respond with calm, firm words, "That doesn't sit right with me," or "I'd rather end this discussion here," you shift the dynamic entirely. You show them that you're not a puppet to their behavior. Because here's the truth, small moments matter. Life is made of them. And in those small, unexpected moments, when someone crosses a line, when tension rises, when pressure builds, these phrases act as your armor. They don't just shield your peace, they elevate your presence. These aren't clever comebacks. They're a code, a way of carrying yourself. And when you use them consistently, you stop living at the mercy of circumstance and start living on principle. Simple words, spoken softly. But when combined, these 5 phrases form a quiet language of inner strength. Because, here's the truth, real respect is never demanded. It's earned through your presence, your tone, your clarity. When you speak without aggression, but with unwavering firmness, people feel it. They pause, they adjust their tone. The way they treat you begins to shift. Not because you forced them to change, but because you showed them who you are. This is your code. Not one built on domination, but on discipline. Not on volume, but on value. And when you live by it, you don't just speak differently, you move differently. You carry yourself in a way that commands attention without ever needing to raise your voice. So here's your invitation. Choose one phrase this week, just one. Use it intentionally, in a conversation, a disagreement, a quiet moment where your calm is tested. And when you do, come back here and share your commitment with a simple message. I choose respect. If this message moved you, if it gave you tools, clarity, or courage, consider subscribing. Join us here on the Stoic Fortuna, where timeless wisdom becomes daily practice. Let the world see what it looks like when one person stands still, while everything else rushes around them.